Hello. So this video is going to be a very basic introduction to serif and sans serif fonts. We're going to talk a little bit about what the difference is between them, why you might choose one or the other, and how you might use both of them in a document. Now, I'm not an expert on typography, which is the study of different types of fonts. So what I'm going to cover in this video is the sort of basic information that you would want in terms of understanding font choice for day-to-day composition or for business and professional writing. So to start, we want to talk about these are serif fonts: Times New Roman, Book Antigua, Bell MT, Garamond. These are 4 examples, but there's lots and lots of other ones. Then these are sans serif fonts: Tahoma, Calibri, Arial, or Verdana. Again, there's a lot of other sans serif fonts, but these will give you a sense of what these different fonts look like. So the difference between them is whether or not they have serifs. So that's not necessarily all that useful as a general distinction, but if you look at a serif font like Times New Roman, what you'll see is they've got these little lips or these little protrusions at the ends of letters. So we can see it really clearly on the T, where on the top crossbar, we've got these downward strokes at the end of the bars, and we've got a horizontal cross stroke at the bottom of the T. Now, by contrast, if we look at the T on a sans serif font like Tahoma, it's much more plain and straightforward. So all we have is a cross stroke and a down stroke. So we don't have serifs. So again, that sort of basic distinction between serif fonts and sans serif fonts is whether they have those little protrusions at the ends of letters. So if it has protrusions, the way that these 4 fonts do, then it's a serif font. If it doesn't have these protrusions, the way that these 4 don't have them, then it's a sans serif font. So why might you choose one or the other? Well, there's a couple of major things that you want to think about. Sometimes people just prefer the look of one or the other, and so that's unless you're writing in a context where a specific font has been specified. So for instance, if you were writing for an academic scholarly journal or something like this, they will often specify what font something should be written in. If you were writing for a class, for university or something like that, your instructor might specify what font things should be written in. If you aren't in that situation, one thing that you can do is just choose a font that you personally like. So for instance, I'm a big fan of Bell MT. So all of my job application documents and things like that are written in Bell MT just because I happen to like it. My partner is a big fan of Garamond, which a lot of creative writing is published in. She's a poet, and so she likes Garamond because of that. Some people like sans serif fonts because they look a little bit cleaner. They look a little more modern in their sort of simplicity. Some people prefer serif fonts because they look a little more old school, a little more ornate, but it's really, for the most part, it's really up to you. However, one consideration you do want to think about is whether or not your reader is going to encounter this document on a screen or on a printed page. Traditionally, serif fonts are easier to read on a printed page. So if you were, say, writing up a resume that you were going to hand out copies of at a career fair or something like that, or if you were writing a letter that you knew was going to be printed and distributed to the reader, it would probably be better to go for a serif font, because on the page that's going to be slightly easier. On the other hand, if you're writing for an audience that you know is going to encounter this document on a screen, then typically a sans serif font is easier to read electronically. So if you're writing for the web, or if you're writing a resume that's going to go up on, say, LinkedIn or something like this, where your reader is going to get it electronically, then a sans serif font may be the better option because it's going to be easier on a screen. So that being said, there are also options for combining different fonts. So if you're writing, for instance, a professional report or something with section headings or different, if you were making up a flyer or a poster where you were using different fonts, different size texts, etc., etc., you can use different fonts for that. Now, one rule you do generally want to observe is you don't want to mix multiple serif or multiple sans serif fonts. So let's say you were writing a professional report and you wanted the body of the text in one font and you wanted your section headings in a different font. If you were writing in, say, Tahoma for the body of the report, you could use Garamond for your section headings, and that's going to create a visual contrast between the section headings and the body of the text. So that's a really good way of dividing those components and creating visual emphasis. What you don't want to do is, say, use Tahoma for the body of the text and Calibri for the section headings, or Book Antigua for the body of the text and Bell MT for the section headings. The reason is that these fonts are going to be too close and it's going to look awkward. So at first glance, sort of casually just looking at Book Antigua and Bell MT, they look very similar, but there's subtle differences. And the problem with that is it's going to throw readers off and they're not immediately going to be able to identify that difference. So it's going to look awkward and your readers are not going to be able to figure out why it looks awkward. Whereas the difference between Garamond and Tahoma is much more significant. So nobody is looking at Garamond text and thinking, I'm not sure if that's Tahoma or not. Whereas if you're looking at Book Antigua, you could say, I'm not sure if that's Bell MT. So, I mean, obviously, if you have a sophisticated eye and a sophisticated knowledge of typography, you're going to spot the differences between them. But this is generally, if you're going to mix fonts, you can choose a serif and a sans serif font, but you don't want to use two of the same type font. So that's the sort of basic use rules, basic background and knowledge about serif and sans serif fonts.